Time in 4 weeks, we come in on a Monday morning and we talk about the crime in Kansas City, Missouri, and what an embarrassing, utter mess it is right now. 6:05, glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. So as you heard John Anthony just mention there in the top of the hour news, this homicide right outside of Power and Light District early on Sunday morning has stolen headlines in Kansas City. And as we sit here less than a year away from hosting the biggest sporting event on the planet, the World Cup, this town is not close to ready. Nothing in Kansas City right now is in any way prepared for the influx of thousands of people who are coming here, will be staying downtown in our hotels, will be trying to live their life, have some kind of a semblance of a nightlife, with the violent crime out of control in prominent parts of our city. This is not, another homicide on the east side on a block that nobody ever goes to and nobody could point out on a map. I'm not downplaying those, don't get me wrong. Every loss of life is a bad one in Kansas City. But let's be honest, let's just be totally honest. When you have violent crime happening in high traffic parts of Kansas City, that folks from all over town can think, oh, yeah, I've been in that parking lot. Oh, yeah, I've been on that street corner. Oh, yeah, I walked right by where 2 people were shot and killed over the weekend. When you have a large percentage of Kansas City that can sit there and visualize themselves being in that exact location, which I can at 13th and Grand, and I know most of you listening right now can picture yourself standing at 13th and Grand outside of this parking lot where gunfire erupted at about 3:30 yesterday morning with 2 people dead, 3 others injured, and you have a couple other folks who are in critical condition as well. You sit there and you say to yourself, man, what is going on? How are we possibly going to get this under control? Because it's continuing to ramp up at a pace worse than last year. We're at 102 homicides in Kansas City. At this time last year, we were sitting at 100. And last year, yes, was a major downtick from 2023, but we are way past where we should be on these violent crimes, especially homicides in Kansas City, Missouri. Mayor Lucas comes on this show every single week. He's the mayor of Kansas City. He's been doing this since 2019. He gave a campaign promise 6 years ago that was to get the homicides under 100. Now, he didn't say under 100 by July 4th every year. He said under 100 for the year. And for the first couple of years of his term, I defended him. I said, listen, you're not going to turn this stuff around overnight. You're not going to be able to take the homicide number from 140, 150, 160 and get it down to 100 just because the new guy shows up. It's not how it works, right? It's never how it works. But now as we sit here, 6 years later, we're over 100. There's no sign we're really slowing down. There's no answers from anybody at this point. We don't have a jail. We're still sitting here saying, what's going on with the jail? And the answer is not much. The answer is no one really knows what's going on with the jail. I mean, I asked the mayor about this on the show last week, and there was nothing there.
We don't. It is, and I frankly will show some frustration on 2 different issues in Kansas City right now: the new jail and resurfacing of Broadway. There is an RFP that's out right now. I believe we have responses. I'm not sure what's happening here. I do know that there's the temporary jail chat. There's the A-floor chat. We're so frozen in the kind of different parts of what part of jails we're going to have that the whole build the thing is actually slowed down.
That's a long way to say the jail's not close to being done. No one has a timeline, and it is government at its best, or more like government at its worst. That's the long and short of it there. So now as we sit here about 11 months away from the World Cup, you tell me at 913-408-7957, is there any evidence to suggest that this town is ready, is properly prepared. I see leaders doing cartwheels over having the streetcar extension finished down to UMKC. I mean, it's a joke.
Nobody cares.
Can people go out to dinner and not get shot? Can we start there? And if you think that's too aggressive, if you think that's too much, I mean, you had people who were visiting Kansas City over the weekend, staying downtown, talking to local media like Fox 4 and saying this.
Safety is now top of mind for one visitor spending several days in downtown Kansas City.
I'm literally walking down to go get some dinner, and I'm staying at a hotel just up the block. So, yeah, it makes me think twice about what I want to do or where to go, or maybe I should order in now.
Yep. At some point, you know what's got to happen here, too? And I've said this for a long time. Business owners have to grow a pair. You know who else needs to do that? Where's the Chamber of Commerce? Where's the Restaurant Association? I mean, it's hard enough being in that business right now, given the cost increases, given the uncertainty of the labor force. There's a lot of questions and concerns right now in that industry. Where's the Restaurant Association in any of this? You got guys, visiting Kansas City, talking to local media and saying, yeah, I think I'll order in. What does that mean for future weeks, months, and years to come in downtown Kansas City? How do you expect to grow your business? Now, you might sit there and say, well, it's 3:30 in the morning. Nothing good happens after midnight. I'm not in parking lots at 3:30 in the morning. I'm typically not either, except for, sometimes on the early side. Sometimes with this job, you're there at 3:30 in the morning because of what we do for a living. But that's not the point. This is not a one-off, right? This is not like, wow, I can't believe this happened. It's the third time we've come in here on a Monday morning in the last 4 weeks and had to talk about a weekend that was filled with violent crime. Third time in the last 4 weeks. We've had juveniles involved in killings. We've had double homicides. We've had all these issues on these weekends the last few weeks that we've had to come in here on a Monday morning, and it's been our lead story. And here we are once again. And now you're talking about a prime time location of Kansas City sitting there at 13th and Grand. And now you got to look at that college basketball Hall of Fame, and there's bullet holes in the side of the building next to T-Mobile. I mean, that was reported on local news. Walk by T-Mobile today if you're going downtown, if you got a reason to be down there, and you got the college basketball experience that now has bullet holes in the side of the building. What does that look like for Kansas City? On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, and don't forget the business owners down in Brookside, like Sean Brady, can't take out his own trash at work without getting killed. Yeah, I mean, that, of course, is about a year removed. That was almost a year ago to the day from happening down in Brookside. So we continue to have these prominent and really dangerous situations unfolding in parts of town. And nobody in charge has an answer. Instead, it's like, let's talk to the Washington Post and CBS about how Orange Man bad. Are you freaking kidding me with that? Nathan Willet is a Kansas City councilman in the Northland. He is going to be on the show at 7:30 this morning on KCMO Talk Radio. You do not want to miss that. If you're at the office by then, make sure you stream it on the iHeart app. So that way you can hear what he has to say coming up in about an hour and 15 minutes here on KCMO Talk Radio. And as some of you are saying right now on the text line, Pete, can Trump send his National Guard here to Kansas City? You know what? I'm going to reach out today to people at the administration and say, send them in. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not saying it's going to work, but Trump keeps talking about, Baltimore, New York. It's like, brother, you don't realize how bad it is in some of these Midwest cities. Get them out here. Bring them out. I'm going to reach out today. You already tried Operation Legend here in Kansas City. You know what? Let's get it going, man. Let's go. We'll be ready for you, John.
Yeah, Trump has already set, he moved the World Cup draw to D.C., or said it's going to be there, so he's cleaned up D.C., so he should focus on the World Cup cities next.
I would love
which
that.
I believe Chicago is one, and New York as well.
Yeah, send them in, man.
And that would include Kansas City, obviously.
Let's go. Let's get on that short list. I'm all in because ahead of that World Cup next year, man, things better be a lot better. If not, we could be making headlines for all the wrong reasons. At 6:15 on a Monday morning, glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. Speaking of brawling and fighting and violence, well, there was some violence overseas involving prominent folks in our region. We'll tell you who and what happened coming up next. Mark, stop laughing, okay? I got to tell the story. Coming up next on KCMO.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, we go from violent crime in Kansas City to just buffoonery in Ireland. If you missed it over the weekend, if you're a Kansas State fan and you were in Dublin for the Iowa State game, maybe you're back here in the States, back here in the Kansas City area, and I hope your body clock has started to reset. That is a long flight home after the way that game went on Saturday. But we're not going to dive into that. What we will get into is what became the viral moment that was actually leading the New York Post's website last night. And that is Kansas State quarterback Avery Johnson's dad getting into a fist fight with Avery Johnson's older brother, his other son, after the game in Ireland, which Kansas State lost to Iowa State 24-21. This is what it sounded like as these two were seen brawling in a now viral video in basically a puddle outside the stadium. Wow, is that embarrassing? You have a father, and if you haven't seen the video, Avery Johnson's father, the star quarterback at Kansas State, is literally on top of his other son, nearly in a puddle, somewhere outside the stadium, tackling him, fighting over the game. I mean, I know, Guinness will do weird things to people, but this is next level, bro.
I think the brother looked like he was more nervous about getting his shoes dirty than actually getting hurt from his dad. But
well, that's probably true, too. But I'm looking at this video, and I'm like, this is pathetic. Pathetic. Now, I've got 3 daughters, so obviously it's different when you have sons versus daughters. Listen, I got pinned against the wall once or twice in my childhood. Nothing like, super physical or violent or anything like that, but, just a little wake-up call. Which, when you got sons, I think that's okay. I don't have sons, so that's not something I'll be experiencing. But if you have boys, it's okay. That's sometimes how boys respond, John.
I have to do that as the grandfather. Remind Mimi, she raised daughters. I raised boys. I got no idea on girls, but I got every idea on boys, and you are correct, sir.
Yes. I lived it firsthand as one of 3 boys. But now being the father of daughters, I'm like, this is a whole new ball game, man. You got to handle this stuff differently. That being said, taking your grown son and trying to tackle him into a puddle outside of a college football game where your other son is the star quarterback who just lost, my gosh, what are you doing to the kid, for crying out loud? This is pathetic.
Wait till that shows up on his Facebook memory, right?
Oh, my gosh. I'm pretty sure that the entire Avery Johnson family, including every Kansas State fan, wants to forget this game ever happened based on how it went on Saturday.
So I was out at the booth over there at KU in Lawrence, and that video was starting to circulate through the press, the media box, and it was just like, everybody's like, did you see this? It was going crazy.
Oh, gosh. Oh, man. I do want to get to that, Mark. But first, let me read the statement here from Mark and Anthony Johnson, Avery Johnson, the K-State quarterback's dad and brother. They put out a statement yesterday saying, "We sincerely apologize for our actions following yesterday's football game in Ireland. Senseless bickering escalated into an unnecessary fight. We've resolved our differences and take full responsibility for our actions." Well, I'm glad the father and son resolved their differences that led to them brawling outside of a football game that their brother was playing in. "We've apologized to our immediate and extended family and now extend our apologies to Kansas State University, its alumni and fans. We regret this incident, have learned from it, and are committed to ensuring it does not happen again. Please accept our deepest apologies." Yeah, I promise, when they play North Dakota this weekend, they won't be beating each other up in the parking lot. Wow. Stand up, guys. Way to go. How about a slow clap for Avery Johnson's dad and brother? Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. That is freaking pathetic. Pathetic. If I'm Kansas State, I'm like, you guys just, if you don't mind, stay home for this game this weekend. They're Kansas folks. He grew up here in Kansas. He's a Kansas kid. And between the way the game went on Saturday, another loss to Iowa State for Chris Kleiman, KU looked great. I know it's Fresno State, but still, KU looked great. And now you got the star quarterback's dad and brother going viral for brawling outside of the game in Ireland. Wow, that is brutal. You could not have a worse start to the season for Kansas State if you tried. Now, Mark, you were out there at the new booth over the weekend following and covering KU as they opened up against Fresno State. And give me the rundown. Your experience, the look. I know it's only half the stadium, but how did it look? How did it come off?
Yeah, I stayed on the new half most of the time, but it looked really awesome. The fans, it was a sold-out crowd. The energy, the excitement, it was just something that I had not seen. I've only been to probably a handful of games there, but I haven't seen anything like that.
That's damn impressive. It looked good
on TV.
It looked great on TV.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. Now, you bumped into Brian Haney, voice of the Jayhawks, who was in studio on Friday.
Yes, our feature Friday guest. Great guy. Shook my hand, said, have a great time tonight. It's a great day to be a Jayhawk. That's his line, I think, but...
Now,
awesome.
is it true that he didn't recognize you without a hat at first?
See, I'm not sure. He kind of had that look like, all right, who is this guy? I know this guy, but where do I know him from? So then I said, hey, thanks for coming on the show with Pete the other day. And then he kind of had the click moment.
There you go. Smooth.
That's smooth. Good job by you there, Mark. I'm telling you, no one recognizes you when you don't have a hat on. I saw
true.
a picture of you out at the game. I'm like, I didn't even notice it was you, and I know you. I look at you every day for 4 hours here. I was like, who's this guy? Oh, that's Mark.
It's when the whole thing is done, it's just going to be so cool. Like the students still have to, they don't have the Wi-Fi over there on that side of the stadium yet, which is kind of funny. But like once everything is all done, the game day experience is just going to be so cool out there. It already is cool, but it's going to be even better.
And now you got $300 million from David Booth. It is a definitely good times in Lawrence, and the team looked great on Saturday too.
And David Booth was out there.
Oh, was he?
Maybe got the biggest applause of the day.
Oh, if there's anyone who deserves an applause right now in Lawrence, it's freaking David Booth. My gosh, $300 million. The least the guy can do is get an applause. Okay. All right. Very good. Very well done there. Coming up, J.D. Vance may have made a very good argument for the state of Missouri. I'll explain next.
Definitely in the car. In the car. And my phone, anywhere.
KCMO Talk Radio. Now on FM at 95.7. Kansas City's place to talk. Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
I was watching my good buddy Nick Haynes on Kansas City PBS. He does a great job there with their weekend review show. I was not on there over the weekend, but I enjoy watching it no matter what. They do a good job covering the local news. But the panel always basically skews way to the left when I'm not on it, which is fine. I mean, you know, Nick's got to do what he's got to do. He's got a lot of mouths to feed, so to speak, and I never bother him. He knows how to get a hold of me if he needs me. But they were talking about the redistricting coming to Missouri. And my gosh, people should have taken out the box of Kleenex for some of these panelists. They were real upset that Missouri is potentially about to go from a 6-2 Republican-Democrat congressional map to 7-1. And it's all but certain it's going to happen. Mike Kehoe is just slow-rolling this whole thing. But everybody I talked to in Jeff City is adamant that it's going to happen. He's just not announcing it because he doesn't want to really deal with the backlash any earlier than he needs to. And, you know, for a long time I've said I don't know about this. I'm not really a fan of it. I worry it would cause more swing districts in Missouri than it's worth. Right now you've got 6 locked Republican seats. If you push for 7-1, you could end up in a bad year in a 5-3 map. But J.D. Vance was on Meet the Press over the weekend, and I thought he laid out the best argument for any of this. The vice president was talking to Kristen Welker, and he explained why states like Texas and also potentially states like Florida and now here in Missouri may end up doing some redistricting. And this case by J.D. Vance was very salient and is one that when Mike Kehoe makes the announcement that they're going to a special session, he should use as well.
We had way fewer House seats than we should have. 1, if the Democrats hadn't aggressively gerrymandered, and 2, if illegal aliens weren't counted in the census for purposes of apportioning congressional seats. The best estimates I've seen is that in California, for example, has 5 additional congressional seats than it should have because they count illegal aliens for the purpose of apportioning representatives. Meanwhile, Ohio, my home state, lost a representative. We're literally losing representatives for American citizens in order to give congressional representation to illegal aliens. Republicans are trying to balance out the scales a little bit for basic fairness and for the integrity of our democracy, which the president cares about as much as anybody in the country.
So between the gerrymandered blue states and then also the fact that there are too many congressional seats and as a result electoral votes in blue seats because they count persons, not citizens. That's a great case that J.D. Vance laid out there. When you talk about that kind of a 1-2 punch, when you say, well, our opponents have heavily gerrymandered their states and already they have more congressional districts than they should have because the census counts persons, not citizens. So as a result, there are citizens in other states who are not getting the representation they deserve because you have places like California and Illinois and New York that have too many congressional districts because we're counting non-citizens in the census. Suddenly it's like, okay, all right. I mean, it's very hard to sit there if you're against this and be like, yeah, but. It's like, no, you really don't have a leg to stand on. As much as I've sat here for the last 3 weeks and said I'm not necessarily a fan of it, you can't really argue against it based on the argument J.D. Vance just laid out there, right? And that is something that whether it's Mike Kehoe or it's a future Kansas governor, and now we're starting to hear there are some rumors on the Kansas side of the state line that they may try to redistrict Sharice Davids out of a seat. I don't know how they'll do it. They'd have to split up Johnson County in some kind of weird gerrymandered way. Let's be clear, it would be gerrymandering. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. But I started hearing things over the weekend that Kansas could be looking at something like this, John.
Sheesh, better the devil you know. I mean, they redistrict her and she got more votes. Right?
I know.
Got popular.
I know. That's the weird thing. Let's be honest. In 2020, they redrew her district to try to make it easier for Republicans to win. And she kept cleaning their clocks. She did better. What does that tell you about the Kansas Republicans and the job they did?
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
I mean, clearly, these guys and gals are like, we're going to show Charisse. We're going to give her Franklin County and a couple other counties, all of Miami County, and she wins by more. Now, maybe that says a lot about the candidates she was going up against as well, as much as anything else, but still, that was a bad look for the state of Kansas. So that was J.D. Vance laying out the blueprint for Mike Kehoe over the weekend and then potentially on the Kansas side as well. Now, speaking of the Sunday shows, Keatsman was just rolling at this Trump post last night that he sent around. So Trump, they post all these truth socials that he puts up on social media to other social media platforms. So Trump, I guess, was spending his Sunday watching some of the Sunday shows. I mean, at this point, it's like, brother, go play some golf, please. Do yourself a favor. Get out. Don't watch this garbage. It's mostly irrelevant. Nobody else is seeing it. I don't know why you're doing this to yourself, John.
You just cleaned up the place. Go out for a walk.
Exactly. Just get out, man. Go spend some time with Melania. Enjoy your life. Go talk to Barron. See if he's 7 foot tall.
I want
yet.
to see a one-on-one, a game of horse with Barron.
That's exactly right. Instead, here's what he puts up on social media yesterday afternoon. Trump writes, I just watched sloppy Chris Christie be interviewed on rating-challenged news show this week with George Slopadopoulos on ABC Fake News.
Fake news.
By the way, what the hell happened to John Carl's hair? He looks absolutely terrible. It's amazing what bad ratings on a failed television show that was forced to pay me $16 million can do to one's appearance. Can anyone believe anything that sloppy Chris says? This is now back to Chris Christie. There's like 8 thoughts in a few sentences there, including some parentheses. He goes on the right here. Do you remember the way that Christie lied about the dangerous and deadly closure of the George Washington Bridge in order to stay out of prison? At the time, sacrificing people who worked for him, including a young mother who spent years trying to fight off the vicious charges against her. Chris refused to take responsibility for these criminal acts. For the sake of justice, perhaps we should start looking at this very serious situation again. All caps, no one is above the law. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. Boy, go out, take a walk, Mr. President. I say this with all the respect in the world, please. Nobody is thinking about Chris Christie, okay? Nobody right now in American politics. No one this weekend would have even come up with the name Chris Christie if you didn't highlight it in your social media post. Trust me, this is one person that we can universally agree on, left and right, that nobody cares about.
Nobody cares.
He is irrelevant. ABC wants to put him on because he's a paid contributor and he's got to do X amount of hits a year for him. That's their prerogative. But I promise you, that is not a name that the President of the United States needs to be worried about. But we do have to figure out John Carl's haircut because that thing is whacked out. He's right about that. And what did he call Stephanopoulos? I like the Snuffleupagus nickname, but Trump prefers to call him.
He doesn't like to wear them out. He'll move on.
Yeah, true. He liked Slopadopoulos.
That would crack me up when you read it.
Slopadopoulos. Oh, my gosh. Yep, that's the President of the United States. There you go. It's tough, though. It's hard when you got to keep trying to top your own material, right? I mean, you know a thing or two about that, John. It's not easy when the expectations keep getting raised.
Oh, he's got a million of them.
Yeah, that's true. He's just getting warmed up.
To it. It's lightning in a bottle.
Does he have enough for a third term, though? That's the question. Can he get there?
Oh, everybody's his material, so they give him plenty to work with.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Coming up, the 6 at 6, the top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour we will get to coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
It is 6:49. Welcome in on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Let's get to our top 6 stories here.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
Top of the list. Last night was the last night where the sun would be setting in Kansas City after 8 p.m. And now we've got this fall weather coming in this week. I mean, we've got like early October weather coming up this week across Kansas City. It is just, man, I am so excited. Week 1 of college football is going to feel like week 8 of the college football season. Look at the lows this week. 54, 58, 62, 60, highs in the mid to high 70s. Outside of that sun setting before 8 p.m. now, every single day between now and April 20th of next year. There's a lot to like about where Kansas City weather is trending right now. But you know and I know that come like September 20th, it's going to be 95 degrees again for a couple of days, right? We're all on the same page?
We could hope. I was doubting that the cool front would get here, but I'm glad to see it.
Oh, I'm so glad it's here.
Yeah, this is false fall.
Yeah.
That's what we're about to hit right now this week.
Yeah. I saw a couple of neighbors like doing their yard cleanups, they're aerating and dethatching. I'm like, it's too early, guys. It's too early. Don't fool yourselves here, okay?
I can't tell if you need a pumpkin spice latte or an Arnie Palmer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's great.
Number 2.
Well, next up in our 6 at 6, let's go to the Kansas City Royals. They salvaged the final game of their series to avoid the sweep against the Tigers over the weekend. They win yesterday's game 10-8. Vinny Pasquantino and Michael Garcia hitting home runs. The Royals are now 28-14 in series finales this year. Can they just pretend that every single game is the last game of the series? Can it be that simple? Because they do really well in the final game of series. But in the standings, they are now 3 games back of the final wild card spot. The good news is the Mariners keep losing. That's the team that right now the Royals are chasing, along with the Yankees and the Red Sox. So the Royals are 3 games back. There's nobody between them and the Mariners right now for that final wild card. So they're hanging tough as we approach the final month of the season.
Number 3.
Next up in the 6 at 6, an 11-year-old Olathe girl hospitalized on Saturday afternoon after a boating accident on Table Rock Lake. Missouri State Highway Patrol responded to the scene at about 3:45 in the afternoon. It happened south of West Branson. Troopers reported that the girl jumped from a pontoon into the water to help another swimmer, but was hit by a propeller. She was seriously injured, airlifted to a hospital in Springfield, and as of this morning, there is no further word on her condition. If that does come this morning, we will bring it to you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Number 4.
Next up in the 6 at 6, early Sunday morning, 2 people dying, 3 others injured in a shooting near Kansas City's Power and Light District. This was 3:30 in the morning on Sunday, 13th and Grand, just 2 blocks away from T-Mobile Center. I mean, right, you've got now bullet holes on the side of the college basketball experience. KCPD and the fire department responded, and the preliminary investigation shows there was an argument that led to multiple shots being fired in the parking lot. 1 man died at the scene. Another man who was in critical condition died in the hospital a couple hours later. Their ages and identities have not yet been released, but there were 3 other victims here in this deal. 1 man, 1 juvenile boy, and a woman who were all hospitalized. The juvenile is in critical condition, per KCPD. The other man has serious injuries, and the woman has non-life-threatening injuries. You've got juveniles out at 3:30 in the morning roaming the streets of Kansas City. What the heck is going on? This town needs some serious help right now, and we'll get to more of it coming up here after the top of the hour on KCMO Talk Radio.
Number 5.
Next up, there was a press conference moments ago with Maryland Dad, as he was infamously dubbed, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So Kilmar Abrego Garcia had a press conference here with his attorney just a few minutes ago. He is back in the United States. The question is, what happens now? Well, what's going to happen is that he is likely to be deported to Uganda after he declined an offer to be deported to Costa Rica in exchange for remaining in jail and pleading guilty to human smuggling charges, according to a Saturday court filing. His lawyer is contending it is preposterous for Garcia to be deported to Uganda because he doesn't speak the language. Here's the problem. The official language of Uganda is English. Which, by the way, he also did not speak when he snuck into America. So go make sense of that. But Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back in the country for now, and there were some, blue-haired, washed-up hippies who were rallying on his behalf this morning, and as soon as any noteworthy audio comes out of that, we will bring it to you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And as always, we are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Last up in the 6 at 6.
Number 6.
Well, it's going to be a busy day once again for the President of the United States. He's going to be signing executive orders this morning. That is on the rundown. He will be meeting and hosting the South Korean president as well this afternoon. And then also, we're watching this for the President of the United States. Potential deployment of additional National Guard troops to Chicago. We're here in Kansas City. We're waiting for you, Mr. President. We'll take them. Send them over, my friend. I'm going to be reaching out today to the White House to see if Kansas City can get on that short list because things are not good here right now at all. But that is potentially on the president's docket for today. And also, the White House will be launching Make America Fentanyl Free. We have basically closed the border thanks to the president's executive orders. And now the question becomes, can we also continue to drive down the fentanyl deaths right here, not just in Kansas City, but around the country? And the fact that this is a priority for the President of the United States is a great sign. We know it has been for a long time. And now they get set to launch the Make America Fentanyl Free campaign as well. So keep an eye on that. And as we learn more about it, we'll bring it to you right here on 95.7 FM. Coming up next on KCMO, a lot of people are saying to me, hey, why is Mayor Lucas all over national news talking about Trump and crime when he can't get his house in order here in Kansas City? There's somebody else to blame. I'll tell you who, though, next. So we've got Kansas City back in the headline news after homicides outside of Power and Light District over the weekend. It was early Sunday morning, as we've been telling you about here in the first hour plus of the show, that you had gunfire erupt that resulted in KCPD responding, fire department responding, 2 people dying, 3 others injured, and potentially more to come because you have a juvenile involved who is in critical condition. It's an absolutely tragic situation. 3rd time in the last 4 weeks we've come in here on a Monday morning, and we've had to highlight the violent crime issues in Kansas City. Now, despite all that, you've got this national conversation happening, right? Where the president of the United States has used National Guards troops to help out Washington, D.C. They're on a 10-day run without a homicide in Washington, D.C. They've seen a plummeting of their violent crime in the last couple of weeks since the president took over the Washington, D.C. Police Department and the National Guards troops were used on the streets of Washington, D.C. Who's possibly against any of this? It's absolutely insane. But for some reason, and I don't get the political calculation here for Mayor Lucas, who comes on this show every Thursday morning, but he has been a vocal critic of the administration doing what they're doing. He's been on cable news to talk about this, MSNBC. He's been quoted in the Washington Post talking about, hey, I don't know about Trump's strategy here. This is not the right move. And a lot of you reached out to me and you said yesterday on social media, why is Mayor Lucas going on these cable news shows? Why is he being quoted in the Washington Post about these stories? And my response is this. Why are these news outlets asking him? I'm not going to blame the mayor for giving the Washington Post a quote. I'm not going to blame him for going on CNN, for going on MSNBC and giving the anchors and the audience what they want, which is basically just anti-Trump fodder. That gets them excited for a couple of minutes.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
He's just super serving the audience is what he's doing. But the better question is, who's in charge of these shows? Who's in charge of these newspaper outlets? Right? Like, that's the bigger question. If you're looking to put somebody on your television channel, if you're looking to quote somebody in your newspaper about how Trump should not be helping out with violent crime in Washington, D.C., well, I don't think you should be asking somebody who's been the mayor of a city for 6 years and has only seen the homicide numbers go up. That's where I put the blame. If they're not going to do their homework, I don't blame the mayor for going on TV and getting himself a little publicity if they want to fluff him up. I don't blame him for giving a quote to the Washington Post. I'm like, who's in charge of making these bookings? Right? Like, you wouldn't ask Joy Behar how to go about losing weight. Okay? You wouldn't do that. You try to find people who have proven they are experts in whatever it is you want to talk about and you want to have covered. Some of you wanted a Whoopi Goldberg reference there. Fine. Pick your favorite View anchor. Whatever you want to do is up to you, okay?
Yeah.
But you get the point. It's not on him to say, nope, my homicide rate's too high. I can't go on CNN. It's on CNN to say, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense for a guy who has really struggled with the homicides in his own city to come on here and knock Trump, who's going on and helping out Washington, D.C. And by the way, they have seen their violent crime stats plummeting in recent weeks, John.
Yeah, the show's producers go out there and they shop for the opinion they want to hear.
Yes, that's what they do. Yes.
You know, and who's better at filling up time than our man, the Q?
Well, that's true, too. Right? That's a good point.
You know, they sit there and got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Stretch it out.
Yeah.
Stretch it. Nope, no problem. Right?
That I can do for you.
Yeah. So, but the other thing is maybe people start to see him. It's raising his profile in the party because they need some help.
Well, they desperately do. There's no doubt about that. And that's why I'm not going to sit here and rag on him. He's just taking the media time and he's running with it. He's got every right to do that. But then you have J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance is the vice president. He was on Meet the Press over the weekend, and he had a message to Washington, D.C., and to Kansas City, and to every major American city dealing with too much violent crime right now. And this was a little bit of an insight into what exactly the political calculation is here by this administration on this specific issue, fighting violent crime. It's starting right now in D.C., and it could be coming to Chicago and some other major American cities soon as well with National Guard's help.
We don't have to live like this. My message to my fellow citizens here in D.C. or all across the country would be that allowing vagrants and armed robberies to take over your city, that's a policy choice. What President Trump is showing is that if you just empower local law enforcement to arrest and prosecute the bad guys, we can take back American streets. You, as a young family, whatever the color of your skin, you should not have to cross the street because there's a crazy person yelling at your children on the other side. You should not be worried that if you take your son out for a meal at 8 o'clock in the evening, an armed robber is going to assault your family. This is a policy choice to allow lawlessness to overrun our cities. The president has made a different policy choice. And I think what he's showing the entire American community is that we don't have to live like this. And that's the biggest thing that will come out of D.C. It matters a lot for D.C., but I think it matters more for the whole country to see that if we just make better choices, we can take back our cities.
It matters a lot for D.C., says J.D. Vance, but it matters a whole lot more for the rest of the country. That's J.D. Vance saying, yes, what we're doing is good for D.C., it's good for public safety, but they're literally making a pitch to urban cores around America when they say, you don't have to live like this. This is not really all that difficult. You support your cops. You support the men and women in blue. You have their back. You make sure they're fully staffed. You let them go out there. You let them do their jobs. And voila, you've got yourself a much safer situation. Don't overcomplicate this. I mean, yes, there are systemic issues that people always like to point out. But, Kansas City had, 80 homicides in 2014? We're now averaging about double that over the last 5 years. Did those systemic issues get twice as worse in a decade? No. No, we lost cops. We lost trust in law enforcement. Law enforcement turned its back on the prosecutor's office in this town because they were more interested in prosecuting cops than criminals, right? City Hall didn't have the cops back. Hundreds retired, resigned, left early. You can't replace them. You got a slew of issues. And yeah, there are a couple of systemic problems that in a perfect world get fixed. But my goodness, the people that use that as an excuse are always pointing to it because it's a convenient way to be like, there's nothing we can do about this in the short term. It's going to take decades to fix this stuff. That's why they do it, because it gives them an out. It's an excuse for them. That's why they lean so heavily on the systemic issues, despite the fact that we see evidence all over the place over the last 30 years. I mean, you go back to Giuliani in New York. You can look at what's happening right now in D.C., which is that when you increase enforcement, your crime decreases. Nathan Willet is a Kansas City councilman. He is going to be here in 20 minutes to react to what happened downtown outside of Power and Light, where you had a couple of people shot and killed right at 13th and Grand. You have residents who are now talking to local media saying that woke up to these gunshots. You had people visiting Kansas City who are like, I'm not sure I'm going to go out tonight. They're talking to Fox 4 and some of the other TV stations. We'll hear from you at 913-408-7957. Your calls on this before Nathan Willet coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and always streaming on the iHeart app.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Early yesterday morning, 2 people dying, 3 others injured right near the Power and Light District. We now are well over 100 homicides in Kansas City year to date. That's January 1 through last night. We are topping last year's numbers. Still well below the record pace of 2023, but definitely not a good sign when you talk about where this city is trending 1 year away from the World Cup. Sarah's in Raymore first up. Sarah, good morning. You're on KCMO.
Good morning, Pete. Happy Monday.
Same to you, Sarah. What's going on?
Well, I wanted to call about the shooting. One of the girls that was shot this weekend was the sister of one of my friends, and it was horrible what happened. She got caught in the crossfires, had nothing to do with the disagreement that happened between the victim and the people that shot him. And she was just helping the guy out because he had been beat up at first. And then next thing you know, they come by and then shoot everybody up, and her and her friends get shot. And it's horrible. And nobody's talking about the people behind it. Weren't all like thugs. These were people that were walking to their cars and walking to a parking lot. And the next thing you know, Mayor Lucas goes on social media on X and says that it's a parking lot issue. And he goes on about the CPTED, which is talks about the different where things should be and all of that.
Yeah, no, he's big on blaming the parking lots right now. It's ridiculous.
It's not a parking lot issue, Pete. It's about these kids. And they're getting shot up. And not once did he say that he was going to make sure that the people that did it were going to be prosecuted and thrown in jail. Not once did he mention that. I am furious at this. These are kids. These are kids, Pete. This was a young girl with her life ahead of her. Now she can't even get the bullet out of her hip. It's ridiculous.
Sarah, will you keep us posted on how your friend is doing?
Yes.
You know how to get a hold of us? Not just call us, but, reach out to me on social media?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, you can just find me on X, just at Pete Mundo if you're on there, since you referenced that, or Facebook. Just hit me up in any of those places, and please do keep me posted on this.
Okay.
All right?
All right, thank you.
Thank you for everything, Sarah. I appreciate the call. There you go. It's well said. She's got a friend now who's fighting for her life, and we're blaming parking lots. It's freaking ridiculous. Can't blame the guns anymore. Can't blame local control or lack thereof. So now we're blaming parking lots.
Her friend's helping a guy who got beat up.
Yep.
And then she gets caught in it.
Let's go to Carl, Independence. Go ahead, Carl.
Hi, Pete. I kind of want to agree with you and disagree with you. You said something to the effect that the powers that be are saying this is a long-term solution and we can't fix it right now. Well, step one is, yes, we must arrest the shooters. We must show them that certainty of punishment is a deterrent. But there's a second level, the wannabes, the young ones that will step in to take their place. That they're the ones we've got to intercept, and they're the one that's going to take at least 20 years of hard work to create a world in which these young men find avenues for their future other than gangs and violence. And that's where the real solution is going to be.
I agree. I totally agree. You're right. That's a 10 to 20-year process there, Carl. But in the meantime, the only thing you can do in the short term is arrest, jail, and prosecute people committing crimes. You're right. That's absolutely a long-term play, but it's not an excuse for crime running rampant around Kansas City or any other major American city right now. Just can't do it. Mark, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Yes, I agree with you, Pete. Jail is the answer. We have to arrest these people and have a place for them. The city's already wasted, $18 million on that sun crash. I was just wondering if there would be room to incarcerate, put the bad guys in the Sunfresh, or they've got some building, the Cerner building over at 435 and Bannister, that they've taken tax dollars and wasted it. Maybe we should look at repurposing some of the buildings that Kansas City, Missouri has.
Yeah, good idea, Mark. Put them between the dried up strawberries and the expired milk. I like that plan in the old Sunfresh. That's I'm on board with that.
Throw them in the cooler.
Yeah, I mean whatever works, man. I mean I'm not being facetious. I'm on board with that. Seriously, I mean I asked the mayor last week what's the status on the jail, and he basically said I don't know. 30 seconds, Stephen in Kansas City, go.
I mean I'm not being facetious.
Stephen, go. You're on KCMO. You got 20 seconds now.
Yeah, he basically said I don't know. 30 seconds.
No, this is too much. We had a great.
He's still hungover.
We had a great flow going too. We were just ripping through them all, man. I was trying to squeeze in a fourth one. Mark was already mad at me for taking a fourth call in that segment, but probably for the best. I don't think that was going to go well. Just my hunch. Coming up next, Nathan Willet is a Kansas City councilman out of the Northland. He put up a viral post on social media about what happened downtown over the weekend. He'll join me next.
It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
2 more homicides downtown Kansas City, 13th and Grand, early on Sunday morning, and it is the top story in Kansas City as we start the week. Yesterday, Nathan Willet, councilman in the Northland, had a very well-written post on social media where he wrote in part, "Absolutely sickening to wake up to the news of another shooting between young people on the streets of our city. This happened in the heart of downtown KC. We all love this city, but we have to be real with ourselves. Do we look like a city ready for the World Cup? Do we look like a city ready to entertain downtown baseball? Let's have a city that's good for the people in it now, not for the next big thing." Nathan Willet joins us on KCMO Talk Radio. Nathan, good morning. It's good to have you here. Obviously, an outpouring of support on your post yesterday. What do you want to make sure Kansas City knows after another violent weekend in a prominent entertainment district in this town?
Well, first of all, happy belated birthday, Pete, and good morning to all your listeners out there.
Don't try to mush me up, but that's very nice of you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, really sickening, and my heart goes out to all the victims out there, and yet another example of just tragedy in our city. But we can look at 100 different strategies or tactics to combat crime. I know the mayor has proposed looking at parking lots, other different items. The thing is, Pete, if we do not get a temporary jail and a permanent jail, if we do not reform our bus system sooner rather than later, what you've seen in downtown Kansas City will continue to happen, and people know it. You talk to any police officer, you talk to any firefighter. They want a jail. They want the bus system back to where it was.
Okay, so let's talk about the jail. I asked the mayor last week where we are in the jail, and basically the answer is nowhere, if I'm just paraphrasing the long and short of it. You said they're a temporary jail. I mean, is there something that the city should be doing that should be getting considered as we await a multi-year build of a real jail downtown?
Yeah, absolutely. So the current city manager, Mario Vasquez, is tasked with looking at different sites for one, and I think this week we'll have a RFP out and results from that as well. But I tell you, Pete, every business leader has reached out to me or some of our council people privately and said that we need this to happen. They don't want, they're not seeing the mayor really lead on this too much. And they don't know what to do. They are at their wits' end on this. And so my post yesterday confirmed everything I knew. People, obviously on the Republican side or conservative are not afraid to shout out and say what we all know. But there's a lot of people who are more moderate or even progressive business leaders who've reached out and said, Nathan, you hit it on the head. We need that temporary jail. That should be our top priority. If the mayor put all his effort into that, we would move that forward.
So what about some of these leaders? I mean, I'm thinking about the Restaurant Association. I'm thinking about the Chamber of Commerce folks. I mean, they have been for too long nowhere to be found on any of this stuff going on downtown. Where are these losers?
Well, there's a few of them who get out of the woodwork and say something, but obviously they haven't been very strong and they haven't been very vocal. And it's going to take a lot of people to wake up here. We do have hope in the city. I want to tell you, we do have hope, but we have to fix it right now. And we have the KCPD coming back. They had their largest entrance class since 2027. We have more people willing to go into law enforcement because of our pay raises and the equipment and the new support from City Hall. But we can't just do study after study on these jails. We knew prior to Mayor Lucas, his first term, that we needed a jail in the city. And they had study after study talking about the numbers it needed and where it should be located. They delayed it. Then the county reached out and with the mayor, and they said we could do a joint jail together. That obviously window never happened, and you just see something that just gets kicked down the road over and over again. And what happens is you have a culture of crime and a culture of chaos. When there's no consequences for your action, you expect to see what happened early Sunday morning all around the city. And it has over and over again. There's a reason why we just came off record homicide and numbers a couple years ago. And we're continuing to have numbers that are not good for Kansas City. If we really want to get under 100 homicides in a year, obviously one homicide's way too many. But if we really want to get that goal, you would prioritize a jail from the get-go, and you would prioritize public policies that don't promote chaos like the bus system free-for-all.
Do you expect to have any support on that city council to move the ball forward like really soon on a temporary jail, especially with, a World Cup a year away and thousands, tens of thousands of people coming to Kansas City?
Yes, absolutely. And I do want to give a shout out to Councilman Crispin Rea and Councilman Wes Rogers, who have been leading on this issue. I just wish that they're a little bit more forceful and the timeline was a little bit shorter. We can't sit around and study everything. And we like to talk about Omaha as a similar city to us and what they did with their crime to lower it. Omaha has a jail for over 600 people if they do something wrong. We're looking at doing a jail that's only 200. We need to have more than just a space that they are wanting to go towards. So I'm liking that certain colleagues are trying to move in the right direction. It's a little bit too slow for me, and it's not the numbers that we need. If you ask any KCPD officer, they would like 500 plus for a jail.
But where would you put a temporary jail in your perfect world?
Yeah, I'd put it in an area away from neighborhoods that would be able to be secure. And I think more of an industrial type area would be good to look at. And I think I have full confidence in Mario Vasquez. And I'll tell you, we actually have a city manager who's willing to do the right thing. And he knows he has the backing of at least 8 people on the council to move in the right direction. And I think with that confidence, he's willing to stand up to the mayor who has been delaying this for a long time. You can't be on the city council and then be on the mayor of Kansas City for 2 terms and not have a jail and then act like parking lots is a problem of the city. That's not okay. It's not fair, and it's not being very real with the constituents out there.
Well, let me ask you about this. This is Nathan Willet, Northland Councilman in Kansas City, Missouri on KCMO. The parking lots, there's something that the mayor has talked a lot about here in recent days. I believe there are ordinances being proposed basically saying that if you are a company that owns a parking lot, a surface parking lot in Kansas City, basically you've got to get your own security. You got to lock the gates because now the belief is, well, people are congregating in empty parking lots. And if we just had these empty parking lots better protected with better security, these people won't shoot each other. I don't think it's that simple. Here's what the mayor said over the weekend about this.
These are preventable incidents. And in the same way that we look to crime prevention through environmental design, as simple as locking our doors, putting on exterior lighting, we need these types of places where there are consistent problems like this, consistent shooting activity, to make sure they're doing their part.
All right. Nathan Willet, what do you make of this parking lot deal being front and center?
I have a couple comments to that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple comments to that. That parking lot is actually right next to a bus stop. And what happens at a bus stop spills over into these parking lots. No one wants to have a conversation of that. And you want to talk about consistent problems. We allow people who assault bus drivers who are drunk be transported all around our city. And that bus stop right there at Grand is a perfect example of that. And I wonder how those folks got there earlier in the night. I guarantee you at least a couple of them rode a bus there. And people who are, should not be in certain private property, and you trespass and you go and arrest them, where do you put them? We don't even have a jail to put them in. So let's go enforce our parking lots of private property. And what are you going to do with those folks? You can't even put them in a jail because we don't even have any space. So I don't want to propose more items out there. Parking lots enforcement might be in the top 20 in terms of strategies or tactics we can do to solve crime in the city. But if we don't have a jail and if we continue to have a bus system of chaos, it doesn't matter about that. So let's keep the main thing, push that forward, and then we can look at other strategies. I'm asking the mayor to go with me full force on this temporary jail and expedite the real jail that we need for our citizens to feel safe in our city.
Well, God willing, this will be the most recent thing that hopefully wakes up the right people down there at City Hall. Nathan Willet, Northland Councilman. Great job as always, Nathan. Thanks for being here on KCMO.
Thank you, Pete, and have a good rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Nathan Willet on 95.7 FM. You're streaming us this morning. If you're not, you should be on your Google Home, on your Alexa, or on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Coming up, the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend. We'll share that with you next on KCMO.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
7:49 on a Monday morning. It is that time of the week. Let's go.
It's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly on KCMO Talk Radio. Now on 95.7 FM.
Well, it's too easy to make the good my birthday yesterday, so I'm not going to do that. I just need someone to answer this question. As I hit the big 3-7, do I get to still say mid-30s, or do I have to lean into late 30s now? I'm hanging on to the mid for one more year, unless someone has a really compelling case against it.
33 to 37, I think, are still mid-30s.
All right. See, I would say 33 is early.
Okay.
34 to 37 is mid. 38 to 39 is late.
Okay.
You okay with that analysis, Mark?
If you take 34, you might have to switch it up to 36, though.
Okay. All right. Stop.
Mid-30s.
Oh, gosh. I just got a nice photo with the girls from yesterday's little birthday celebration up on the Instagram at Pete Mundo. You can see it there. But the real good from the weekend, Mark went out on Saturday night and got to take in the newly renovated Booth Memorial Stadium in Lawrence as KU rolled over Fresno State 31-7. And it looked amazing on TV. We had Brian Haney on, the voice of the Jayhawks, Friday for our Feature Friday guest. That's where we bring in a long-form in-studio guest every Friday morning here on KCMO. And he was hyping it up. Now, that's his job. But, Mark, you saw it firsthand, and what were your impressions of the new Booth Memorial Stadium?
Yeah, it was incredible. I went to every single level of the stadium, from the field all the way up to the highest level of seating, just to see what it was all about. And every single inch of that place, I would say, it just looks incredible. They had so much detail in the stadium, and the way that everything was built, from the way the photos and the pictures and everything are set up, the artwork. And then the new food spots are also excellent as well. Some new local spots.
Really? Okay. And let's not bury the lead. Voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Haney, saw you, and he just saw you on Friday here in studio. And apparently it took a moment for him to recognize you because you weren't wearing a hat, which you never don't have a hat on there, Mark. So
I wanted to be professional out there.
Thank you for not wearing a hat. I appreciate that. Make KCMO look good. All right, well, good job there. And I'll tell you what, I know it's a Group of 5 program in Fresno State, but I thought Jalen Daniels looked great. I thought the offensive and defensive line looked good. And I couldn't help but think about one of our callers, Wes in Gladstone, who said that if his Mizzou Tigers lose to KU week 2, he'll run around the studio here in a jockstrap. Hey, the way KU looked, Wes is not sleeping easy right now.
After week 0, you could say the Jayhawks are number 1 in the power rankings. Iowa State and K-State were both really sloppy. KU just dominated from start to finish.
Yeah, Mark, there were like 5 games over the weekend. Let's take it easy.
But I'm just saying, after week 0, you could say they're the top of the power rankings.
Yes, you could say that, Mark. You could. And like 5 teams played out of 130. But yes, you're right. Okay. Now let's get to the bad from the weekend. This went viral. The leader in the New York City mayoral race, Zoran Mamdani, failed to bench press 135 pounds while trying to show off at Men's Day in Brooklyn. Whoa. Bad look for this guy. He looked so bad. He's 33 years old, and he couldn't bench press 135 pounds.
Time to outlaw gyms.
Oh, my gosh. So he's got someone spotting him, like on the bench press outside in Brooklyn, New York. And the spotter, you can tell the spotter is like trying to lift up the bar. It's like he's helping him. He's not just guiding the bar. He's lifting up the bar. So like the good commie that Mamdani is, he's relying on the strength of others to pull him up. That's what's going on. I mean, this guy, jeez.
I mean, I'm no bodybuilder. I'm no weightlifter, but I was doing that in 8th grade.
Come on. It's 135
I'm a weakling, and I was doing
pounds.
that in 8th grade.
And I guarantee you, Mark, I'll get you out in the gym today. You could crank up 135 once.
Oh, easy.
There's no doubt in my mind you could do it. All right? So this guy at 33 can't do a $135. That's 45-pound weights on either side of the bar. I mean, that's just kind of standard. You get it up there, you let it rip. you should be able to do 10. So when I am one day the benevolent king in this country, here's what I think is a non-controversial take. Any dude who can't bench press a $135 loses his voting rights. That's it. You're done. Okay? You don't deserve the vote. We're stripping you of your voting rights, and this is in no way controversial. That's it. You got to be able to crank out 135 pounds on a bench press if you're a dude in your prime at 33 years old. And how about Mamdani thinking he's going to get under there and actually do it? Like, how clueless is this guy? It's like, just make up an excuse. Be like, oh, dude, my shoulder's killing me. I just, I can't do it right now. Shaking hands all over town. It's just, oh, gosh, my rotator cuff's a little off. No, he actually gets under the bench press. Yeah, let me in there. And then he can't do it. It's like, geez, these people are so out of touch and clueless. And now he's just the laughing stock of the weekend. If you didn't see it, I shared it on my X page at Pete Mundo. So there's your bad from the weekend. Now we'll get to the ugly. The ugly is what has been sadly the top story in Kansas City, and that is that 2 people are dead, 3 others are injured in a shooting at 13th and Grand at 3:30 yesterday morning. And not only that, but you have more potential loss of life coming out of that shooting. The 3 other victims, 1 man, 1 juvenile boy, and 1 woman were hospitalized. The juvenile is in critical condition. The other man has serious injuries, and the woman has non-life-threatening injuries. You just heard from Nathan Willet. We have had a caller this morning who knows one of the individuals who was shot. She's probably the front runner for our caller of the day. If you're here right now and you're not here at 9:30, that's when we replay our top caller of the morning here on KCMO. So you want to be back for that at 9:30 on 95.7 FM. But this is just another Monday morning where we have to come in here and talk about the violent crime that continues to just permeate Kansas City. And as we sit here 1 year removed, less than that, from the World Cup, does it feel like this town is at all ready for the biggest sporting event in the world? I mean, if you're Kathy Nelson, head of the Sports Commission, if you're Clark Hunt, who's heavily invested in this, do you have any confidence in the leaders in this city making sure that this place is safe and set to put on a good show with tens of thousands of people set to come to this town? How about Pam Kramer, who's running the whole operation? How do you think she's feeling right now? There's the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend in Kansas City. In the meantime, just saw this. Why is Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, calling out Missouri? We'll tell you next. Yeah, this is not a battle that Gavin Newsom's going to win. The governor of California calling out Missouri in a social media post he popped up here. This was last night that Gavin Newsom, who's been going all in on social media, have you seen what he's been doing? He's got a staffer or staffers who are trying to write his posts on social media like Trump does, like all caps, exclamation points, random tangents in parentheses, but it's not funny. And I'm not just saying that because, like, he's not my guy. It's just not funny. That's the thing. It's true about Republicans, too. Republicans who try to act like Trump and mimic Trump just come off like losers. You either have it or you don't. And regardless of what you think of Trump, he's pretty darn funny. Like, when he comes up with these quips in press conferences and he's going back and forth with the media, you cannot teach that. Either you have it or you don't. Either you're funny or you're not. Either you're quick or you're not. And you see Republicans, they try to, like, do their little Trump shtick, and it's like, guys, that's so flat. You just don't have it. All right? And knowing you don't have it is really important. And then if you're Gavin Newsom, it's like, I understand what you're going for here, man, but once again, it's just not genuine, and it's not all that funny. So he's been attacking a bunch of different Republicans. Now he's upset with the state of Missouri. He posts yesterday a picture of Oakland, California, and a picture of St. Louis. And inside of his picture of St. Louis is a goofy picture of Josh Hawley. And he writes here, facts you won't see on Fox News. St. Louis's murder rate is a staggering 190% higher than Oakland's. Do you think Fox will cover that? Well, as I retweeted from Guy Benson, who is on KCMO at 2 o'clock every afternoon, including today, Guy Benson responds with, the last Republican mayor of St. Louis left office in the 1940s. I mean, geez, Gavin, what are you going for here? You know, notice how he put a picture of Josh Hawley in there for St. Louis and not Kara Spencer, who's the actual mayor of St. Louis. Like, say what you want about Josh Hawley, but Josh Hawley's not running the St. Louis Police Department. He's not running crime in St. Louis. He's not the prosecutor for St. Louis. He's really got nothing to do with what's going on in St. Louis. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
As if either senator did. He didn't even get the right side of the state, right? If you're going to do a senator, then you do Schmitt.
Point. That's a good point. At least Schmitt is from that side of the state, and Hawley is from this side of the state.
Yeah, I might have had a little bit of a tweak to it if they had it right.
That's an excellent point there, John. And then if you look at all of these major American cities based on homicide rates across America, St. Louis, Detroit, Memphis, Baltimore, Cleveland, D.C., New Orleans, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, Oakland, Milwaukee, Albuquerque, Kansas City at number 14, and Birmingham at number 15. The mayors of every single one of these cities have a D next to their name. Now, I am going to be fair here. I'm not, at least I think I'll be fair here when I say this. It's not as simple as just saying, well, they obviously all have a D next to their name, therefore they're single-handedly the ones to blame. No, you can be a pro-cop, you can be a pro-law and order Democrat. I think they still exist in the real world. They don't exist in elected office, but they exist in the real world. Like, I really think that those voters are out there. I really think that those people exist. I think they exist here in Kansas City. They just don't end up in too many cases in elected office. They don't end up running anything. They're voters, they're real people, but they don't win primaries. And that's why, whether it's Gavin Newsom posting stuff like this or anybody else trying to somehow point the finger, whether it's what Trump's doing in D.C. or what's happening here in Kansas City. Guys, this is not the fight that you want to pick. It's not going to work out the way you think it's going to work out.
I was going to query whether you thought maybe Eric Adams was as close to your description as possible, but then when you get in office, you end up moderating, right?
Ideally, yeah.
Well,
ideally.
no, I'm saying he was a little more pro-cop. And he a former cop, or am I mistaken about his background?
Yes, he is a former cop. You're right.
Right. And so if anybody were going to speak up in a position, the mayor of New York would be in a position to do that, but he hasn't really been out there back in the blue.
He has not been as actively doing that as he should have been doing it. You're right, the last couple of years there, John. And as a result, they've obviously continued to have a slew of problems there. Now, they're not at the top homicide rates in the country, but just pure numbers, they're obviously always up there because of how big that city is with 8 million people. So now you look at what's going on here in Kansas City or in the state of Missouri, and it's like, man, if you want to look at Missouri and say, well, the problems with St. Louis and the problems with Kansas City are driven by the fact that you've got a red state, please. Okay, you look at these top cities, and the gun laws in all these states are very different. You've got Missouri, you've got Michigan, you've got California, you've got Illinois, Wisconsin, New Mexico. It's East Coast, it's West Coast, it's Middle America, it's North, it's South, it's red states, it's blue states. It's all of those things. One of the few common themes is the party of the leadership in the city itself. It's one of the few things you can point to and say, well, there's a commonality. And if you don't use those commonalities to come to a fair and obvious conclusion, I'm not sure I can help you. Whether it's Gavin Newsom or anybody else. 913-408-7957, 812 on a Monday. Stephen in Kansas City. What's up, Stephen?
Hey, man, we got to stop coaching these Democrats. Let them fall on their own merits. I'm loving this policy of let's get the National Guard in here to help facilitate the arrest. I mean, this is working. I don't know what's going on in the country or what's going on in the polling. I saw that Vivek Ramaswamy is up 10 points in Ohio for the governor's race. Man, people love this stuff. I mean, we're gonna win on this. Vivek is not exactly our greatest gubernatorial candidate in Ohio in a swing state, but something is going on where this message is getting through that you can have safe communities and you don't have to rely upon, Mayor Lucas. Don't help Mayor Lucas. He's going to lose his job anyway.
No, listen.
He can replace Frank White or something, but let's not coach these guys. Let's let them stand or fall on their own merits.
I'm here. Listen.
Daddy's home, and we're going to put the National Guard in here.
Daddy's home.
Daddy, you're my daddy.
Thank you very much for that, Stephen. I appreciate it. Listen, I'm not here to help or hurt anybody, okay? I'm not here to lobby or advocate for any party or candidate or anything like that. I show up, you know what I think, I'm giving you my opinion, and, you make of it what you want. But I'm not here to help any single person or group or anything like that. Trust me, there's plenty of days where Republicans can't get out of their own ways. But on this issue, it's not one that the Democrat Party is going to come out looking good with. It's just not. And it doesn't need to be this way. It does not need to be this way. This should be like everyone comes together and says, yes, we need to flood the zone. We need to get more cops on the streets. And because many major American cities are hemorrhaging police officers from the last few years, stemming from 2020, if the National Guard can help on that front, so be it. Let's go. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. That is our text line as well as we get it rolling here in the 8 o'clock hour. Pete, I'm wondering if Oakland's crime rate is down because the Raiders fans all moved to Vegas. Oh, gosh. All right, now we're going there on a Monday morning. That's entirely possible. I don't know. But, if Gavin Newsom wants to compare Oakland to St. Louis, the one thing that those cities do have in common is their ability to lose sports teams left and right. That does seem to be something that they're both very good at. And hopefully we're not saying the same thing about Kansas City, but let's be honest. If you're John Sherman, owner of the Royals, you're waking up today, you're seeing the news from the weekend. Another homicide downtown, 2 homicides downtown, 13th and Grand. You were a vote away from potentially having a baseball stadium 5-6 blocks away. I'd argue the voters of Jackson County did John Sherman a favor. Dare I say, they helped him dodge a bullet. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Eric Schmitt, Missouri U.S. Senator, is going to be here. I'm going to ask him if he's going to lobby the administration to potentially get National Guards troops out here to Kansas City. He's got a very cozy relationship with this administration. We'll ask Eric Schmitt about that and more coming up. 913-408-7957. Plus, the star of the biggest TV show being talked about in Kansas City that I don't think is getting enough attention. Next.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
I didn't finish it, but I got one episode left on The Kingdom. That's the docuseries that ESPN did on the 2024 Chiefs season. Very good. Kate and I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I got one more episode left. And to me, the biggest star of the series that isn't getting enough attention is not someone who's all over the place, not someone who is prominently featured, but it's Tavia Hunt, the wife of Clark Hunt, the owner of the team. And I say that because, I think there's a lot of owners and their families and their spouses who would want a prominent feature on a docuseries like this. Their egos would almost demand it. But despite all that, Clark Hunt is mostly there and featured and highlighted to talk about his father, the history of the franchise, coming to Kansas City, a lot of the nuts and bolts and historical part of the team. He's not there to be pump his chest, look at me, I own this team, we're great, we're Super Bowl champions, look at what we've done and look at what I've accomplished. His wife is there, but Tavia is really nowhere to be found. She's not really clamoring for attention when you watch any of this. I don't think they did a single sit-down interview with her, like one of those one-on-ones. And not that I needed another reason to respect the family top to bottom, but I do even more after watching the docuseries, because when you watch a series like this, you can learn a lot from somebody based on body language, what they say, how they say it. You can get a feel for someone. Do you like them? Do you not like them? And I just come out of the series going, okay, if I needed a reason to like the Hunt family more in a way I didn't realize I needed it, I got it. Because they're not looking to be the center of attention on any of this. They weren't looking to make it about them. They were focus on the team, highlight the team, talk about what they're doing. And yeah, we're here to be the stewards of the franchise, and obviously we play a role in all this, but everyone seems to know their lane. That's the other thing I got out of this. Mark Donovan's not here to pump his chest about how amazing the team is and take all the credit for it. He's happy to give a lot of that to Brett Veach. Brett Veach knows his lane. Andy knows his lane. The players seem to obviously know what their roles are here. And when you're putting together a successful team or an organization, business or sports, having people that know their roles and know their lanes is critical. Trust me, in radio, you get salespeople who suddenly think that they can just pop on the mic and do this. And those are the worst, the absolute worst. And vice versa. There's a lot of stuff I have no idea about what they do that I'm not interested in doing. If I wanted to do what they did, I would go do it. There are things about the sales side I don't know anything about, John, and I don't care to know about any of that stuff.
It's interesting you point that out. As a fan here all my life, right preceding before there, Carl Peterson was president, CEO. He was doing all of these titles, and you got used to his chutzpah, if you will, right?
Yes.
And so it is interesting to see Brett Veach speak on the players, the draft, to see Mark talk about the stadiums and the business plan, and Clark has the big picture.
Yes. And everyone knows what their role is, and they respect the people around them. That's the other thing. When you don't respect the other people around you, that's when those walls break down very quickly, right? That's when you suddenly have trouble in paradise. But right now, you get the right owner with the right vision. You get the right GM who knows what his role is, works well with the coach. Obviously, that's the case. Mark Donovan, who knows Andy from his time in Philadelphia. I didn't know that till watching this docuseries that they worked together in Philadelphia. And you have that trust. You know your role. You stay in your lane. You hyper-focus on it. You become as great of an expert as you can be in your lane, and you trust the people around you to do their job. And you let them do their job. How many of you are driving right now to an office where you're about to be micromanaged? Where you're about to work for somebody who doesn't trust you to do your job? Now, if you're stinking up the joint, that's a separate story. But if you're halfway competent, and if you know what you're doing, then you should be left to your own devices. And I've always believed you hire people who you trust to do the job as you see fit. And if they don't do it, you move on, right? That's how it works. And that's one thing when I was just looking at it from a business perspective and kind of interested to see how all the pieces fit. It is so clear the Chiefs have that right now. And, man, is it a lot of fun to watch. Have you guys finished the series? Mark, I think you finished it, right?
Yeah, first weekend, yep.
First weekend.
Binged it.
You binged it. Probably up till 4 a.m. with the baby watching it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. You happy with it? You think it went well?
Yeah, I thought it was great.
I did, too.
This last episode that you're going to watch soon, it gets you fired up for the season.
Oh, does it? All right, I'm glad I saved it. John, have you watched it, or are you still trying to figure out how to stream ESPN Plus?
My AOL's not working. That's the thing. No, I get tired of watching all those things. Also, I'd rather watch the Super Bowl over and over, the ones they win anyway,
all right.
than these things. But I've read the books, and I feel like I know it all outside of the story for last year. But
okay.
I was there. So.
All right. So you don't want to buy ESPN Plus. That's the moral of the story. That's okay.
Yeah,
That's all right.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money.
That's fine. We're good with that. 913-408-7957. Pierce in Lenexa as we get set to bring on Eric Schmitt in 10 minutes, Missouri U.S. Senator, and talk about the crime issues in Kansas City. What's up, Pierce?
Hey, Pete. How's it going?
I'm well, my man. What's happening?
I just wanted to speak a little bit on this Trump using the National Guard to go to 19 different states it is now. Basically, my brother was telling me that, Trump wants to declare a national emergency for it. And I was like, I don't think that sounds right. So I was looking into it. And it says there's about 2,000 National Guard in D.C., and they're trying to get troops into Chicago, but they're not authorized to do any sort of arrests or anything like that. They're only allowed to do, like, transporting, fingerprinting and logistics things like that, not like arrests unless it's authorized through Congress or something like that. But under Title 32, that's what Trump's using, and he's the only one that's ever used it this way for cleaning up crime and for ICE, supporting ICE to get the illegal immigrants out of here. But they're federally funded.
So what's your take? What's your take here, Pierce? I got 30 seconds. So what's your general point?
My take here is just that I support him doing this, and anybody that has a problem with him doing it is the problem, because why would you not want your taxpayer-funded government to clean up the streets? And like Chicago, it's so bad there. Like, why would you not want it cleaned up? And if the states aren't willing to want it, then like that just shows who the problem is, and we all know who the problem is.
Yep, that's no, listen, Pierce, that's well said. Don't bury the lead, man. You're right about that.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Eric Schmitt, Missouri U.S. Senator. We'll ask him about it next.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Missouri U.S. Senator Eric Schmitt is here. He's got a new book that just dropped last week, The Last Line of Defense, How to Beat the Left in Court. Get it on Amazon or wherever you get your books. Eric Schmitt is joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. Senator, good morning. And let's just start off with the book as a whole. I mean, you talk a lot about your time as the Attorney General, 2019 to 2023, peak COVID. You're right here as the AG in Missouri. And you're fighting a lot of the nonsense, including a lot of what was happening here in Kansas City at the time. So how much love, or maybe it's a better way to put it, how much criticism does Kansas City end up getting in this book?
Well, I think that your audience will really enjoy the book because here in Missouri, whether you're in St. Louis or Kansas City or anywhere in between, we were living through this craziness. I mean, it's a lot of the great things that are happening now with President Trump we should celebrate. But you don't have to go too far back in time in the DeLorean to figure out that this was a time of lockdowns and you had the compulsory COVID shots, the mask mandates in the schools, you had the mask mandates in Jackson County and St. Louis City and in Kansas City. You had, and then on the national level, open borders and these DEI struggle sessions. We also saw this craziness in our schools where kids were being, pushed the pyramid of oppression and all this nonsense. And so it just happened that at the time when all this was going down, I was AG in Missouri, and we led the fight. And I think it created a playbook of how you can be smart, creative, and win the important battles. But for a Missourian, this book, I think, Last Line of Defense, you said you can get it on Amazon right now. It happened in our backyard, a lot of the local stuff, and we just had the courage to stand up and fight back.
What are some of those local things that as Missourians, or obviously Kansans, who follow this news cycle in Kansas City as much as anybody, what are some of those stories that people are reminded of when they're reading through this book, whether it's COVID-related, whether it's law enforcement-related, that will bring back maybe some not-so-good memories, but good memories of you obviously trying to fight some of the nonsense?
Well, I think, we had our kids were locked out of schools for a year. And if you remember, when they were coming back, the adults who should have known better were too scared or whatever to stand up and push back against this national movement to force masking on kids. That's what was happening. And if you remember, we sent a letter. There was a court case, and then I sent a letter to all the school districts in the state saying, hey, you don't have the authority to do it. The legislature never delegated you the authority to have quarantine policies or force masks on kids. And some school districts were defiant. It's interesting. We opened a parent portal, Pete, and I think this is one of the lessons that we talk about in the book for people who come after and do these other things, is when you engage the community, you multiply sort of the allies in the fight. So we had parents sending us, emails in. There was one kid, for example, who didn't want to wear a mask, who was forced to sit in the middle of a stage, in the middle of a gymnasium, isolated by himself to eat lunch. It was like a punishment. Like they were punishing these kids who didn't have to wear masks. And these adults should have known better. And then, of course, when it comes to the critical race theory and all the stuff that we uncovered, there were kids being forced to engage in things called privilege walks, where you take a step forward if you're white, take a step forward if your parents are married. And then the kids would open their eyes and look around. And what does that do? It just separates our kids. So it was a wild, crazy time that was, defined by this worldwide pandemic. People lost their minds, social unrest. We had of course, the riots in 2020. You had the defund the police movement, all this stuff, and we were standing up and pushing back. I think, though, that COVID, at the end of the book, because I've never written a book before, Pete, so there's like a lot of reflection that goes on when you write it. And there's a couple of inflection points in my life. The first is how I got into politics with my son, and I've talked about that before and his challenges. But I think the second one was COVID, because it to me, for the first time, I think power doesn't necessarily corrupt, but it does reveal. And I think COVID revealed the worst instincts of those on the left and what they would do if they had that kind of power again. And so, again, we have to use the court system to stand up and push back. Missouri led the way, and that's why I wrote the book.
When you look back on that period of time, especially in Missouri, there was an approach from leadership at the state level from the governor's office that was more of a, hey, we'll let the cities do their thing, we'll let the counties do their thing. And it was kind of a cop-out, it felt like, to many of us who were in Kansas City and some of these other parts of the state. How big of a mistake was that in hindsight, and what can we learn from it?
Well, I talk about that Missouri, you think of Missouri as this red state nationally, But we didn't have any statewide masking mandates, but that did leave a lot of authority to the locals. And in many ways, what you saw in St. Louis and Kansas City were local leaders who were trying to sort of outwoke one another for national attention. And it fell to me to do something about it. To this day, Pete, when I'm at a grocery store or somewhere in Missouri, the most frequent comment that I'll get is usually from a mom saying, hey, thanks for standing up for our kids. And businesses were destroyed over this. People lost their livelihoods because of this just nonsense. And so you have to be willing to – I think the lesson of the book, Last Line of Defense, How We Beat the Left in Court, on Amazon right now, you can get it, is that it takes courage. It really does, because, as you know, I was on your show at that time. I remember being interviewed by a reporter, a local reporter in Missouri, the day we filed the lawsuits against 50-plus school districts across the state. It happened to be the peak day of Omicron, not on purpose. It just happened to be. But we filed the lawsuits, and I remember a reporter interviewing me in her car with a mask on because she still wasn't allowed in the studio to do the reporting. Like, that is just – it's a wild time. There was police tape around playgrounds. So anyway, that was sort of that aspect of it. Then, of course, we had, with Biden in office, the censorship enterprise that we uncovered in the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit. We took Fauci's deposition. You can read about that in the book. We also took Elvis Chan's deposition, the FBI agent, who was pre-bunking the Hunter Biden laptop story with all the social media giants right before the 2020 election. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot that we cover, but there's a lot of homegrown stuff. I also talk about Missouri. There was just this dichotomy when we had the bicentennial in 2021 of how people were handling these COVID restrictions. And I just think you had a clear divide between the left. It was about power and control. And I think on the right, we were fighting for freedom.
Eric Schmitt on KCMO Talk Radio. For those that don't know, what is the story of your son and how he led you into the political arena?
So Stephen is just turned 21 last week, and but was born with a rare genetic condition. He was our first child, and he was diagnosed with that at about 5 months. Started having something called tuberous sclerosis, where you have tumors form in different organs of his body, including his brain. So it's very much affected Stephen's development. He's nonverbal. He'll be with us, but he has epilepsy too. He's on the autism spectrum. He has epilepsy. So he has seizures nearly every day. And when he was first diagnosed as a baby almost, and when he was a few years old, would have these massive seizures, including a 4-hour seizure. And we almost lost Stephen at one of those episodes. But going through that as a dad, I went through this process of kind of discernment. What did I want to do with my life? I was a partner at Lathrop and Gage. Things were great, and I was building a family, but reflecting on those circumstances, it kind of compelled me to want to do more with my life. And so I got into politics, and Stephen to this day is really an inspiration for me to try to make a difference. And so Stephen kind of got me into all this. And then as Attorney General, again, just saw the landscape of everything that was kind of coming at us. And I try to share those insights in the book.
Senator, are you? How do you feel about Catherine Hanaway replacing Attorney General Andrew Bailey here in Missouri?
I've known Catherine for a long time. I have a ton of respect for her. I think her experience as a U.S. attorney will help her. I think that now that you've got the Trump administration, there's different eras. I actually talk about it in the book. The difference between my first 2 years as Attorney General when President Trump was in office, we were focused on crime fighting, partnerships. Remember, we had the Safer Streets Initiative in Kansas City and St. Louis and Springfield. We partnered with Tim Garrison at the time in the Western District and Jeff Jensen to fight violent crime. And then when Biden came in, then you had COVID in 2020 and 2021, but then you had Biden come in and the left-wing lunatics took charge, and we took on a different mission, which was taking on that federal overreach. But I think there'll be some crime-fighting opportunities that Catherine Hanaway, I'm sure, will be very focused on in St. Louis and Kansas City. And I'm going to work as much as I can to get federal support for that, federal law enforcement in St. Louis. We announced some additional FBI agents in St. Louis. and we're not done yet. I'd like to see more of that, including in Kansas City.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that leads me to what we're talking about this morning here on KCMO, and that is another violent weekend in Kansas City. 2 people dead, 13th and Grand, right outside of Power and Light District. This was early yesterday morning at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So, as the president obviously looks at other cities to have the blueprint that he's obviously had success with the last couple of weeks in Washington, D.C., what does it look like for maybe a Kansas City and a St. Louis when it comes to whether it's National Guard's help or something else that the Trump administration is willing to do? And how much are you willing to try to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, these are conversations. So the backstory is when even in the transition, but then, of course, when we're going through the confirmation process with Pam Bondi and with Kash Patel, these are very early conversations I had. Hey, we need some help. And they seem very willing to do that. In fact, Kash Patel in our initial and I've known Kash for a while, even before he got appointed to this position as director of the FBI, but he had an interest of getting FBI agents out of Washington and having more folks in the field. And I think that alignment for St. Louis and Kansas City will be very important to have additional resources who can work side by side with local law enforcement. And the truth of the matter is, all these will look different depending on where you're at. But one thing that's clear, and after this failed experiment that the left toyed with in places, including Kansas City, this whole defund the police movement, it's just an utter failure. And there's no substitute for a law enforcement presence in prosecutions, right? Like, not only do you get the bad people off the streets, but, there's a deterrent effect with that too. And so, those are things that I'm going to work on, have been working on, will continue to work on. So that part of the book, Last Line of Defense, How We Beat the Left in Court, you can get on Amazon. We talk about that. That was sort of the initial phase of my time as AG. But then, of course, when Biden came in and, effectively you were going to lose your job if you didn't get the COVID shot, and schools weren't going to get their funding unless they did, critical race theory. The office took a little bit of a different mission as well.
There you go. Senator Eric Schmitt. The book will obviously, if you're a Missourian or a Kansan, and obviously you follow the news across state line, this book is going to be well worth your time. It is out. The Last Line of Defense, How to Beat the Left in Court, from Senator Eric Schmitt. Senator, thanks so much for being here. We always appreciate your time, and we'd love to do it again soon. Thanks so much.
We'll do it, Pete. Thanks for what you do.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Eric Schmitt on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. There you go. All right. Some encouraging news there. Coming up next, a weird trend that I just got to get your feedback on this. If you were in the housing market, would you want to be a part of this? We'll share it with you coming up next.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
This new trend is getting a little weird. Real estate market, Wall Street Journal writing here that buyers are test driving homes with sleepovers. Yeah.
He's a cuckoo bird.
All right. So what's happening here is that, and this is starting at the various highest levels of real estate. This isn't necessarily happening, at your entry-level starter home of real estate. But they're talking, and you know how this stuff always goes. It always filters on down. But the story here is starting with the, multi-million-dollar estates in places like Newport Coast, California. Eric Albert listed his 11,000-square-foot home for $60 million. And the person who was interested in buying it wanted to stay there and do a sleepover. So they rented the house for $250,000 a month for 2 months to live in it for 2 months, and then decided, I'm going to pass on the house. Now, this guy nets $500,000 to basically move out of his own house for 2 months. But this is something that I could see growing in popularity in the housing market. And I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. Where someone says, I really like your house. I'd really like to buy it, but you mind if I sleep in it for like a couple nights? Mark, you want some creep sleeping in your bed where you and your wife sleep every night, just giving your house a test ride?
No, that is super weird. I mean, this guy stayed, you said, for 2 months?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is just a rich guy.
Yes,
but
yes.
Man, that's crazy.
John, you in on this, man, or are you
I
passing?
am not. No.
Okay, all right.
No B&B for me, man.
Me neither. But it was a headline piece in the Wall Street Journal about how at the highest levels of real estate, people are now wanting to basically sleep in the house for a period of time to see whether or not the house is a fit. I mean, people do realize you move your own bed into a house, right?
I should say, yeah, dude, come on over, but I get up at 2:20. The alarm goes off. I got to do the news. So, I'm not moving out. You can stay over.
Yeah, you can crash on the couch for a little bit. You're in charge of the 12-pack every week, and we'll see how this goes.
That's right. Left side of the refrigerator's mine.
Yeah.
If they're not from the area, maybe they can watch a tornado with you on the front porch.
Yeah, that'll cost you extra. John's going to charge for that to show you how to properly tornado watch from the front porch, right?
I got lawn chair or Chase Lounger. The Chase Lounger costs you a little more.
Oh, man. So the story goes on to note that, there are more with buyers becoming a little more powerful in this current market. Because for the first time in several years, we're actually seeing the buyers have a little more leverage than the sellers have had, which has been the case for the last few years. You're seeing people acquiesce on certain things and negotiate certain things. And you know what? If giving people a test run of your house with a sleepover is what's to come in the real estate market, well, I didn't have any plans to move. I'm not interested in moving, but I'm definitely not going anywhere now, John.
Right. You've seen, I can't remember the TV commercial, but these people are in their house and all of a sudden they hear all this yelling and commotion and it's goats next door that sound like kids playing.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did they not know they were moving in next to goats? Maybe this prevents things like that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. There was one thing when we moved into our current house I wasn't aware of. And that was that there were basically trails. We don't have sidewalks in our neighborhood. We have trails behind the homes. So people walk up and down the trails, dogs, kids, and whatnot. And at first I was like, oh, no, this is going to freak me out. I'm going to have basically random people walking in my backyard. But it actually turns out to be quite communal. You see neighbors, you see people around the neighborhood. People don't really bother you. The worst part is my dog, Woody, sees someone out there and goes nuts every time he sees someone out the back window. But for the most part, it's been very communal. And I didn't notice it because we moved in and we bought the house in the winter time and it was covered with snow. So I didn't realize there was literally a walking trail in the neighborhood right behind my home, which at first I didn't like, but now it's been completely fine and I have no issue with it. But if you gotta sleep in a house for, several weeks potentially in some cases to figure out whether you like the house, it's not for you. Okay?
No.
It's not for you. It's like anything else in life. If you got to think that hard about like going on a second date, the relationship is not for you. Just move on. Go to the next one. But this is one of those trends. I hope it stays at the highest levels of elite society, and the rest of us don't have to be bothered with this. The real estate market is screwed up enough. We don't need people sleeping in our beds to get a
Next
test
thing
ride.
you know, you got Snooki in the situation and a big party at Kegger going on.
Could you imagine? I mean, seriously, there's some bad things that could come out of that. Oh, my goodness. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, something that one of our two states must do to copy the other one, and a lot of our surrounding states. We'll tell you what that is coming up next on 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Kansas has got to jump on board with Missouri, Nebraska, and Oklahoma as surrounding states that have moved ahead with phone policies banning the use of cell phones in schools. Kansas is one of about a dozen states that requires and recommends local policy on the issue, but does nothing at the state level. That means they're in the same boat as Colorado. However, Nebraska, Missouri, and Oklahoma all now have state policy that bans phones during the school day. This is where all of America should be at right now. 9:05 on a Monday. So what's weird about this is, there's a lot of talk like on this crime issue about how these issues often divide along partisan lines. But this is one of the few issues that there's no rhyme or reason to red or blue and what states have chosen to go ahead with full bans on phones and what states have done nothing. Let me give you an example. Missouri, Texas, Oregon, and New York have the same policy. When's the last time
one of these things does not belong
that Missouri, Texas, Oregon, and New York had the same policy on everything or anything for that matter?
Oh, that's a 2 and 2, as Chuck Woolery would say, isn't it?
Exactly. 2 red states, 2 deep blue states, and they both agree. Kids should not have phones in the schools. It's a no-brainer. Meantime, you've got other states that have elected to ban phones during instructional time. That would be Iowa, Utah, Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia. All right, that's a pretty good backup option. But then there are states like Kansas that requires or recommends local policy on the issue of cell phones in schools. And Kansas is in a boat with Colorado, New Mexico, California, Nevada, Washington, Idaho, Montana. So once again, you have some deep blue states on this list, and then you have some deep red states on this list. There's really no rhyme or reason. And then you have a handful of states who have just done nothing. And once again, some of them are red, some of them are blue. States that have done nothing when it comes to cell phone policies in schools: Illinois, Mississippi, Wyoming, Michigan, Massachusetts. Makes no sense. At a time when you can basically predict what a state does based on its political makeup, this is one of those issues, one of the few issues left that apparently is not driven by partisan politics. It's one of the few things that actually appears to be driven in large part by some common sense. And that is that kids should not have smartphones in the schools. So I shared this map is up on my X page at Pete Mundo. You can see it there. And it was part of a big article written this week by the Associated Press, headlined, "Students Face New Cell Phone Restrictions in 17 States as the School Year Begins." And Missouri is one of these states that has the new policy in place where kids can't have phones in the schools. And I could not be a bigger supporter of this. Now, my kids are younger. I've got a first grader, one who's got one more year of pre-K, and then we got the 18-month-old. So I know my kids are not of age yet, but I will make it my mission that as many states in the country as we possibly can lobby for will go out there and pass this statewide, and that Kansas will be next up here in our backyard. It's a no-brainer. I mean, I posted this on X this morning, and we got a bunch of folks. Sarah writes back to me here, St. James is completely phoneless this year, and so far it is going great. Mel writes to me, on the Missouri side, our school district has already done that. They started last year. No regrets, no downside. Now, I know there's always some of you that say, I don't know about this. Chris writes, I have to say I think this is a bad idea. If an incident occurs at the school, I wouldn't want my child to be unable to communicate because his phone is locked up. Has to be a better way to solve this that doesn't create a new problem. See, that's where the schools actually have to do their jobs. and have a system in place to inform parents if, God forbid, something goes wrong. And by the way, if you think that something's going to go wrong at the school and you're going to show up and be John Wayne, it's not likely to happen. It's just, I'm not trying to burst your bubble, but you tell me how exactly that's going to go. So for the 1 in a million situation, I don't think it's worth saying, fine, put the smartphones in all the classrooms where the kids are completely distracted and don't pay attention to anything and they're scrolling through TikTok and doing whatever they want to do. No, you don't make policy decisions and you don't make oftentimes business decisions based on the 1 in a million. It doesn't mean you don't prepare for the 1 in a million. You do. We live in the Midwest. You prepare for what, a tornado warning might look like in your home, in your community, at the schools. You do that, but you don't make broad decisions based on the 1 in a million. That's bad policy. And that's something that right now, when it comes to Kansas, they've got to get on board. And I know there's always this belief in local control, local policy. I'm sorry, I don't trust these school boards to make good decisions locally. I've seen very little evidence that they deserve the benefit of the doubt on this issue. 913-408-7957. Let's start off with Mike and Olathe. Go ahead, Mike. You're on KCMO.
Hey, good morning. I'm out of the classroom now, but I will say this. The high school I was at last year, when we basically took phones, basically put them away every time you came into class. No phones were out, or you got reprimanded. Or
now, was this your policy, or was this the school's policy?
Well, I had the policy for 2 years, and then the school board finally convinced the principal to do it, and they did it. And here's what happened. And they ought to take note of this in Illinois because of all the violence. The thing that I liked about it was not only were kids paying attention, but there were no more fights in the commons. Literally, there was a fight every week at this high school in South Johnson County, and principals got hurt trying to break it up. No fights, no bullying, hardly at all. I'm telling you, the safety factor, we don't need Illinois could probably help the National Guard stay out by basically adopting this policy because their fights in schools would go bye-bye.
Wow.
It would make it a lot easier on the silly mayor. But my point is, it's not just about attention span. It's about violence and all the other things that you want to have on your video when you're filming the fight.
Mike, as someone who's in schools every day, when would you give a kid a smartphone in today's world?
Only if it was something that they had to research that the Chromebook wouldn't allow them to.
No. Sorry. I'm saying as a parent, when would you give your kid a smartphone in today's world?
As a parent, and I've got 4 and 11 grandkids, I would say 14, 15. When they get into high school, I think it's probably a safe bet to have one, but not while they're in school.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate what you're doing.
14's the age.
14. Yeah. All right. There you go, buddy. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I keep hearing the flip phones are coming back. My kid's getting a Nokia. All right? That's the route I'm taking. Hold me to it. All right, guys? I know Mark's got the most mature 12-year-old, 13-year-old in America, and I mean that
it's true.
In all sincerity. So I know, you've got cream of the crop there, but I'm not sure about mine. I've got questions. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Fairway. Matt, go ahead, my man. You're on KCMO.
Hey, good morning, Pete. Big fan of the show.
Thank you, Matt.
I wanted to get your take on the idea that as a conservative, we fought for years to have local control over our schools, and you're now advocating for a statewide policy that's in line with, of all places, New York State. I don't understand how you can square the idea that we want local control over our schools with a statewide policy. I'd love to hear your comment on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, first off, I think, New York is more in common and more in line on this issue with a lot of red states like Florida, like Texas, like Missouri, like Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama. All these states do have state bans. But here's the thing about, and then we learned this during COVID, right? Cities and municipalities only exist under the statewide umbrella. The power in this country has always been intended to be with the states, not cities and not the federal government. The power has always been with the states, and that was the way the founders intended it to be. So I still think that, if you believe in federalism and you believe in the states determining control of its citizens, then I don't think that's being hypocritical. Not on this issue. 913-408-7957. But it's a fair question. Listen, I understand it. It's a fair question. But once again, this is not like Missouri going along with New York. There's a lot of red states and a handful of blue states that have all gone ahead with a cell phone ban in schools because the states oversee the schools, right? I mean, that's how the education system is set up in America. The states are supposed to be ultimately the power brokers here in all this. So that's another reason that I have no problem with the state doing this because they're the ones who oversee the school districts and are supposed to be ultimately in charge. Eric in Overland Park. Go ahead, Eric. Got a minute, my man. What's up?
Very quickly, yeah. I don't know how we survived high school, junior high, and elementary in the 70s, 60s. It's unbelievable. I mean, they had phones. But you had to go to the principal's office, and generally you didn't want to go there, but if you had to, then you could call your parents. But, they were probably at work.
Yeah.
So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Eric. In the 90s, I was using a payphone as a kid. All right? I remember late 90s going to a payphone. Being like, do I have 35 cents today or not? Or yes, go to the principal's office, go to the office secretary, pick up the phone, call the house, call mom. That's what you did.
Take the payphones out of the school, you lose an alternative source of a revenue stream there.
Yeah.
Used to go through and see if anybody forgot to pull the change out.
That's right. That's right.
I need to make a phone call. Is there any in here? Hey, look.
Whoa, it's your lucky day.
Yeah.
Figured out I don't have to give my middle daughter a cell phone yet. I dropped her off at gymnastics a couple weeks ago, and we ended up going to the Johnny's next door to where it's at, right? So
yeah.
She wasn't supposed to have practice that night, so she sat there for about 15 minutes, and the teacher said, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Call your dad. And she called me straight from their phone. She had it memorized. She knew how to do it.
She knew my cell phone number. Yeah. Wow. Well, teaching them your number is a good idea there, Mark. And they don't need phones. You're right. They can use someone else's in a pinch. They'll be fine. Coming up, are we now blaming parking lots for the violent crime in Kansas City? Yes. The parking lots that are just basically big, barren, black spaces in Kansas City? Apparently so. We have the audio next.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
I guess in an effort to continue to try to figure out how not to blame politicians and the criminals at hand, we do things like blame guns, we blame systemic issues, we blame not having midnight basketball options, we blame a lot of things. Now, some are in the business of blaming parking lots. I kid you not. So we had this tragedy over the weekend, 13th and Grand, 3:30 a.m. yesterday morning. 2 people are dead, 3 others injured in a shooting near Power and Light. I mean, we got bullet holes on the side of the college basketball experience now because of what happened yesterday morning. And sadly, there could be more to come. You have 3 others who were shot. A man, a juvenile boy, and a woman, all hospitalized. The juvenile is in critical condition. The other man has serious injuries, and the woman has non-life-threatening injuries. So Mayor Lucas has been on this weird crusade against parking lots the last few days. He has actually written about it. He has introduced an ordinance as well to try to secure what he calls unsecured parking lots unattached to businesses, calling them breeding grounds for crime, including shootings, drug sales, car side shows, and other nuisance activities. So now we're going after the parking lots. Now, were these parking lots there 10 years ago when the homicide rate was half of what it is right now?
It looks like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, they were there. I'm sure they were. Yeah, they were there.
Aren't many of the garages downtown not associated with businesses? I'm having a little hard time with that one, but maybe I need to reread that part. Any parking lot not associated with a business.
Correct. So he's saying the companies that own the parking lots need to basically have their own security. They got to lock the gates, and they got to be responsible in some ways for what happens in their parking lots.
So the management of the garages and parking lots then.
Correct.
And it's not a Walmart parking lot then relative to the business part, I guess.
No.
Yeah, that's where I was confused a minute. Because I'm saying downtown, those are for anybody, so they're not associated with a business. But I got it now.
Correct.
See what you're saying.
So he's going after these blank surface parking lots that obviously have ownership, but it's not typically the business that's, next door or something like that. It's just some management company that owns these parking lots.
Right.
So the mayor did speak to Fox 4 about this, and here's what he had to say.
These are preventable incidents. And in the same way that we look to crime prevention through environmental design, as simple as locking our doors, putting on exterior lighting, we need these types of places where there are consistent problems like this, consistent shooting activity, to make sure they're doing their part.
So now the companies that own the parking lots have to do their part. I may buy into that after the city does its part. The city has failed to do its part for years. And maybe there's a small role here that these companies that own these parking lots can do. Yeah, there might be a little something they can be a part of. But, one of the main issues that we continue to have is thugs and criminals running rampant, not caring one bit about cops, not worrying about law enforcement, and not believing that there is any serious punishment in this community that has no jail and hasn't for 10 years. The mayor went on to talk to Fox 4 in this package, and here's part of what that sounded like.
I tell you what, if there was a gate on that parking lot, if people had to pay to be in there, if there was some sort of security patrol saying, get the heck out, you probably wouldn't have a congregation of people there hanging out. It's not 100%. It's not fail-safe, but it's a start.
So what happens when they shoot each other, on the streets, on the sidewalk? Who are we going to blame for the sidewalk crime? Oh, yeah, that's right. The city owns the sidewalks, so that's going to be kind of awkward, isn't it? This notion that criminals worry about gun laws like they worry about, hey, this parking lot says we can't shoot each other in here, so we should probably shift our beef somewhere else. It's not the problem. It's not what this is about.
Lucas says he knows who's ultimately responsible.
And don't get me wrong, the real person to blame are those who pick up the guns, who are bringing the guns and causing these shootouts. They'll face justice.
And the mayor says that in the scope of his powers...
No, that's the problem. They won't. No, they won't. That's why this is happening. The criminals do not believe that they will face justice. It's been the issue for at least half a decade in Kansas City. And anyone who's paid any attention to any of this knows that. Now, I hope they will. I like Melissa Johnson. I want her to do well. I'm rooting for her. That's the right thing to do for Kansas City and Jackson County. But no, they don't feel that way. And coming up, our caller of the day, you will hear from someone who is friends with the woman who was shot by 13th and Grand. Don't miss it next.
Stream Mundo in the Morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
9:34, Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled, coming up at 10 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio. We have more crime down by Power and Light to talk about out of the weekend. 2 people are dead, 3 injured, 1 man, 1 juvenile, and a woman were hospitalized. And our caller of the day has information and personal knowledge in a relationship with the woman who found herself shot with non-life-threatening injuries. Here it is on KCMO.
Hello?
It's the Mundo in the Morning Caller of the Day on KCMO Talk Radio. Now on FM at 95.7.
Sarah's in Raymore first up. Sarah, good morning. You're on KCMO.
Good morning, Pete. Happy Monday.
Same to you, Sarah. What's going on?
Well, I wanted to call about the shooting. One of the girls that was shot this weekend was the sister of one of my friends, and it was horrible what happened. She got caught in the crossfires, had nothing to do with the disagreement that happened between the victim and the people that shot him, and she was just helping the guy out because he had been beat up at first, and then next thing you know, they come by and then shoot everybody up, and her and her friends get shot, and it's horrible. Nobody's talking about the people behind it. These weren't all like thugs. These were people that were walking to their cars and walking to a parking lot, and the next thing you know, Mayor Lucas goes on social media on X and says that it's a parking lot issue, and he goes on about the CPTED, which is talks about the different where things should be and all of that.
Yeah, no, he's big on blaming the parking lots right now. It's ridiculous.
It's not a parking lot issue, Pete. It's about these kids, and they're getting shot up. And not once did he say that he was going to make sure that the people that did it were going to be prosecuted and thrown in jail. Not once did he mention that. I am furious at this. These are kids. These are kids, Pete. This was a young girl with her life ahead of her. Now she can't even get the bullet out of her hip. It's ridiculous.
Sarah in Raymore, our caller of the day on KCMO, and Sarah knows how to get a hold of us with more information on what happens to her friend who was shot in this terrible situation down by Power and Light yesterday morning. And if you've got information, you can always share it with us. Share it with me on X, at Pete Mundo, Instagram, at Pete Mundo, Facebook as well. Find me there. And direct message me if there's something that you think we need to get out there on this story, or really any story that Kansas City media is not doing a good enough job of. We are happy to do it here on 95.7 FM. On the text line, Pete, Mayor Q is blaming the parking lots, but he refuses to name the owner of the parking lot. This one at 13th and Grand is owned by Copagan Brooks LLC. Who are they? Well, they happen to be a big developer in Kansas City. They do commercial real estate. So if we're going to sit here and start ragging on some of the companies that own some of these parking lots, well, why not call them out? Well, in the case of this parking lot at 13th and Grand, you have a company that owns it that has a ton of business in front of Kansas City and will continue to propose business in front of Kansas City. So that's a little awkward, is it not? So are we really serious about any of this, or is it just a dog and pony show? Is it just a chance to basically point the finger at somebody else? It feels like the latter, because if it wasn't, you'd call out some of these companies and say, hey, you know what? We're going after this Copagan Brooks LLC. I don't care how much business they've got in front of Kansas City. I don't care what they want from City Hall. Call them out by name, go after them, and just let it rip. But that's not what's going on here. On the text line, Pete, if this shooting is not the death of the Royals downtown stadium, I don't know what is. Well, it was dead a long time ago. I mean, there's nowhere downtown for the Royals to go. It looks like it's North Kansas City or it's Overland Park. And out of those two options, to me, it's not even close. I'm going up to Clay County, if it's me. But you look at what happened over the weekend, and you know what? Jackson County voters may have done John Sherman a favor. He may have dodged a bullet, no pun intended, by not having to deal with a stadium down there in the Crossroads District, based on everything that's been going on. I thought that the East Village location might come back to the forefront, but it never did in the last few months. The only spot downtown is Washington Square Park that's getting some attention. Obviously, due east of Union Station and right there by Crown Center. But, last Monday, I was down at Crown Center. I was actually invited to, there was a big conference happening for real estate folks in Kansas City. Residential, commercial, a little bit of everybody. So I went down there, and I found parking, like right in front of Crown Center, right off of Washington Square Park. And I pull up, I'm like, oh, this is easy. Look at this spot. This is great. Then I start looking around Washington Square Park, and it's like a who's who of homeless guys. And I'm like, I really like this Volkswagen Tiguan I've got. And as much as I love my friends at Volkswagen Lease Summit, I don't want to have to go back there to buy a new car because this one was stolen. I just don't really want to do that. So I would have had to pay anyway there. It's, pay to play down there, parking right along Washington Square Park. So I loop around and I just park in the garage of the, I don't know if it's a Marriott or a Hilton or whatever it is right there. I just park in the parking garage of the hotel. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to pay a little more money to know that I come back and my car's here. And I'm not trying to hide my briefcase and hide this bag and hide that bag. I'm just going to go out there, park in the hotel parking lot and be done with it. Because I'm looking at Washington Square Park, and I'm like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable parking the car here. I don't. Not that anybody was overly aggressive, but, why bother? And it's such a sore sight for Kansas City to have that right there. You think a stadium just magically fixes that? I'm also looking at it and saying to myself, how do you fit a baseball stadium and parking and anything else around here? That's the other part I couldn't figure out, John.
That's hardly big enough for wiffle ball. Right? That place is played like that guy's yard.
Yes.
Seems like, anyway, when I'm down there. I mean, Irish Fest is coming up, this weekend?
Yes.
People will be down there. See for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Now, this company that owns the lot there at 13th and Grand, they did put out a statement to Channel 41 saying that we're deeply concerned about the recent incident. Our heart goes out to the families and loved ones affected by Sunday morning's events. The safety of our community, residents, and visitors remain our top priority. We're actively working with city leaders, law enforcement, and local stakeholders to explore additional resources and solutions to ensure downtown continues to be a safe and welcoming place for everyone. What a weak response. What a pathetic response. I know they've got to play politics to some extent, but you know what? Call it like it is. Tell the truth. Say, yeah, we're willing to do some things a little bit better. Maybe we'll hire private security to some extent. But you know what? This city's got to step up its game big time. It's just like on the plaza. These new owners of the plaza, who have to now hire a bunch of private security because they have no faith in the city keeping people safe when shopping on the plaza. They've been pretty cowardly as well. And I understand playing nice to some extent. But, man, you know what? When you're getting called out by city leaders for basically being part of the problem for violent crime, and this is how you roll over this weak and this pathetic, my goodness, who's in charge of these companies? Grow a pair, please, for your own sake. This is embarrassing. You guys should be ashamed of this. 913-4087-957. Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled is coming up at 10 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Of course, the text line as well. You caught me. You caught me on the text line. Wow, that was a really subtle Tiguan dealership advertisement. Way to go. Nice job. You picked up on it. Yes, once in a while, we'll show some love to our great advertisers here on KCMO Talk Radio.
Strategic ad placement.
All right, that's all it was. But it was not a true live read. Just a little extra love. That's all. Part of the storytelling. Part of the job. It is what it is. All right. 913-408-7957. We have time for you before Keatsman Uncanceled takes over at 10 o'clock on 95.7 FM and always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. A big initiative dropping from the President of the United States. We have the details next.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
$9:49, Keatsman Uncanceled is coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. How about a shout out to the Trump administration? A new campaign is launching today, and it is called Make America Fentanyl Free. It's described as a privately funded multi-million-dollar ad blitz on national and local TV and across all major social media platforms, X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. It aims to reduce the number of Americans killed by fentanyl. We know it's been a crisis here in the United States, especially in recent years, with a wide-open southern border. Gets made in China, comes to Mexico, and was flooding across the border. And a lot of the people who died from these fentanyl poisonings, that's what they really were. They were not overdose deaths. It's not a traditional overdose where someone takes too much of a drug. Oftentimes, the fentanyl was laced in drugs that people didn't realize they were taking. Not that they should be doing drugs to begin with. They shouldn't be.
Yeah, it just flat out looks like another tablet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing something, you think it's something, and that's something laced with a deadly amount of fentanyl. And it led to record highs for drug-related deaths over the last few years, topping 100,000. I mean, we literally were under attack by our enemies on this fentanyl crisis, and the people in charge had no interest in doing anything about it. So organizers put out a statement saying the Make America Fentanyl Free ad campaign was launched to support President Trump's efforts to save American lives from deadly fentanyl, which continues to be a leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. The website is makeamericafentanylfree.com, informing Americans of the devastating effects of fentanyl and pointing out that ingesting as little as 3 grains of fentanyl can be lethal within minutes. The campaign is also intended to educate the public about the hidden dangers of fentanyl, which is frequently disguised in other substances such as cocaine and marijuana. I mean, we know we're very involved with the Cooper Davis Memorial Foundation here in Kansas City. It's a young man at Mill Valley High School who died a few years ago when, once again, he did not expect to be ingesting anything like fentanyl. He took something, it's an Adderall now in some cases, that's bought on the streets, and he died. And his mother, Libby, has been a great advocate and voice for fighting the fentanyl crisis around Kansas City. And we all know someone or a family who has been impacted by this fentanyl crisis in recent years. I mean, you know, I cannot imagine, as many of you do, my kids are all very little, but having teenagers, kids in their young 20s, where, you know, like it or not, reality is what it is. People experiment. They do things they're not supposed to do. And you just pray to God that they're not taking this stuff that happens to be ingested with fentanyl. You can teach them all you want, right? But young adults will be young adults. Kids will be kids. They will do dumb things. And one dumb thing can literally cost you your life with the way that fentanyl still is too prevalent in drugs on the streets all over America. So step 1 was obviously closing the border, but now step 2 is putting together a plan to continue to fight this epidemic of fentanyl that is on the streets in not just major American cities, but in rural America, suburban America, and urban America. It's impacting all the above. So this will be a very, very welcomed movement, and I'm glad this is something the administration is bringing a lot of attention to. Make America fentanyl free. Now, on a lighter note to wrap up the show, Mark just brought this to my attention. I've always been a Southwest fan. Now I'm a huge Southwest fan. No pun intended. Southwest is changing its policy for plus-sized passengers who need 2 seats. From CNN, Southwest Airlines is changing its seating policy for plus-sized passengers. Starting on January 27th, passengers who take up space in the neighboring seat will have to buy an extra ticket, and it might not be refunded. The current rules allow flyers to buy an extra seat ahead of time and get a refund later, or request an extra seat at no charge at the airport. Those options made Southwest popular with many plus-sized passengers. But the new rules mean the second seat will be non-refundable unless the flight departs with at least one open seat and both seats are purchased within the same fare class. Let's go! Woo! It's about time some respect was shown to those passengers who get stuck next to plus-size passengers.
Show some RESPICT.
And I'm not saying this to fat shame anybody. I'm really not. That's not the intention here. It's simply about defending people that did nothing wrong, paid for a seat, and literally are getting squeezed out of their own seat in too many cases. That's who I'm the voice of right here, okay? It's not about a fat shame, John. I just want to be clear.
Southwest Airlines, if you do you, you do too. Right? You want to be you. But you want to do you, then you're going to pay for two.
I love the policy, but I admit it is a disaster waiting to happen. Who's measuring the overflow? Who's in charge of saying, sir, you're going to have to come back out. You need a second seat. Are we going to have a scale?
Well, I think that the passengers have to do that for themselves now, right? They have to buy the two tickets. So it's on the passengers, right?
Yes. But then what happens if you're falling over somebody?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I mean, what do? You know what we should do? You ever try to bring on a carry-on onto a airplane, and when you get towards like the end of the line, they have this contraption where you put your suitcase in to this metal contraption to see if it's the right size for the overhead bin?
Yep.
I think we got to put a seat there. Put a seat there. And, you know, if you walk up and the flight attendant says, sir, I think you might need to buy a second seat. If the passenger says no, sit him in the seat. All right? Right in front of everybody. You sit him in the seat.
What if the boarding gate was normal width and you couldn't fit through without going sideways or something? Two seats.
Two-seater.
Yep.
Get back out here. All right. I just given ideas for Southwest Airlines.
It's tough to police that one, isn't it?
I do not envy the person that's in charge of policing this for Southwest, but it's long overdue. And it's more about protecting and lobbying and advocating for those that bought a seat and suddenly find themselves in half a seat. All right.
I see a few abandoned grain elevators in rural areas. Maybe you could get the truck scale and just when people step up, just take this reading right there.
Just like they do with the baggage, right? Just like the luggage. Hey, I'm under 50 pounds. No, I'm over 375. Oh, no, what do I do? And with that, we're done. Before we get into any more trouble here, we'll hand it off to Keatsman on a Monday morning. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate you joining us. Back tomorrow at 6. Uncanceled is coming up next on 95.7 FM. Have a great day.